welcome to The World Transformed. I'm Phil Bowermaster, and with me in the virtual studio is my co-host, Stephen Gordon. Hello, Stephen.
Hey, Phil, how are you?
Well, I am super fantastic. How are you, my friend?
I'm great also.
Ready for
great
some
show lined up, yeah.
Audacious action, huh? Am I right? It's time.
Yep.
We looked at what we had done last week with our outrageous optimism, and I said, you know what, we're not done with this topic yet. We've got more to say, and I feel like we're going to do a couple more shows anyway that touch on this idea of outrageous optimism. So if you haven't listened to that show yet, there's the link right there. You can see it right there in the show notes. Go listen to it and then come back and listen to this, because this is really part 2 of outrageous optimism. Audacious action. We're going to talk about how one bold idea, one outrageously optimistic idea, may do more to end suffering and really save the world than anything else can do. That's kind of where we're going with there. Where we ended last time was we said, basically, outrageous optimism is what gets us from point A to point B.
It's the crazy people that tend to come up with the ideas that are just, everyone thinks is nuts in the beginning, and before you know it's conventional wisdom, because it's just something that works. And
those kooky ideas end up working, some of them, a few of them.
Most of them don't work, but the few that do are the ones that, are revolutionary, right? So
exactly. So we're going to start out this time talking about kooky and not so kooky ideas about things that aren't good, okay? We're going to talk about the things that can end the world. And we're going to talk about the role that outrageous optimism and its counterpart, audacious action, might play in preventing those things from happening. So I suggest everyone read up on this article over here on Wikipedia on the topic of global catastrophic risk. Fun reading, by the way. If you ever get bored, if you're ever feeling too cheerful, check it out, okay? This is basically all the stuff.
Bring you down.
Yes, all the stuff that can end the world. Because I think a lot of people spend a lot of time thinking about climate change, and that's great. But you know what? They're not thinking about all the other stuff, right? They're thinking about climate change to the detriment of all these other wonderful ways that the world can end. And in fact, that article breaks it down into 2 basic big categories: the man-made catastrophic risks and the natural catastrophic risks, the ones we don't maybe think about quite as much. On the man-made side, you've got global warming, but then you've also got biotechnology, cyberattack, environmental disaster, mineral resource exhaustion, experimental technology accident, nanotechnology, warfare and mass destruction, world population, and agricultural crisis. And Stephen, we were talking before the show. I think we have touched on every one of these at some point. Is that right?
At one point or another, I think we've brought up every one of these things, but we always find ways of being optimistic. We
mostly bring them up to say, here's how we're going to avoid these problems. Here's why we don't have to worry about these problems, or why, in the end, we will triumph over these problems. And then there's the natural ones, okay? So these are good too, right? Asteroid impact, extraterrestrial invasion, natural climate change. We got global warming listed up there under the man-made. There's also the climate change that just occurs, right? As part of this planet being a planet that has been hot and has been cold. Also something you have to look at. Cosmic threats, like, say, a star blows up nearby, goes nova, and sends cosmic rays that wipe us out. Geomagnetic reversal, global pandemic, and one of my personal favorites, living kind of in the shadow of Yellowstone as we do down here in Colorado, volcanism. So lots of different ways for the world to end. And as I look over this list, I think we've talked about all these too, right?
Within the last 12 months, we've mentioned the supervolcano in Yellowstone, so, yeah.
For sure. And we've talked about global pandemic. The only one I think we may have missed, I can't recall ever discussing, is geomagnetic reversal, right?
Yeah, we haven't. I don't know how big of a risk that is. I mean, it's apparent in the geological record that from time to time the poles just reverse.
And I haven't looked at this one. I haven't looked at the detail. But so what? Yeah. Say the poles reverse. Your compass points the other direction, but what else happens? Still, they've got it listed there as a global catastrophic risk, so it must be pretty bad, right? Maybe it's the whatever happens that makes the poles flip is so bad that's why you have to look out for that, right?
I'm going to have to read up on it, because I confess total ignorance as to why it would be such a bad thing.
It doesn't sound good, but on the other hand, it doesn't sound serious, because what difference does the current geomagnetic configuration make? Is that impacting our lives?
Let's imagine for a second that the birds that fly south for the winter are somehow doing it magnetically. Could could it completely throw off their flights and therefore, put the environment at risk somehow?
There you go. It just snowballs from there, right? Absolutely.
Yeah, perhaps. Yeah, I got to look it up.
We got to look that up. But we'll take it as a given that if they listed it on Wikipedia, which I believe we've mentioned in before, is the most authoritative source of knowledge available in the world.
Absolutely.
Yeah, if it's there, then it
has to be huge. Yeah.
It must be a catastrophic risk. So I look over these, and I don't know, Stephen, any personal favorites on the man-made or the natural? Anything that you think this is the way the world will probably end, and people don't pay it enough attention?
I'd point you to the Robert Frost poem, Fire and Ice.
Ice is nice and will suffice. So
that's right.
You're talking about natural climate change at that.
Exactly. It could be go hot or cold with climate change. And, environmental disaster, if something were to happen that would basically destroy the base of the food chain somehow. There was a movie that was not very well received. It was pretty expensive, but I always kind of liked it. Sahara. Spoiler, if you've never seen it, then you might want to skip ahead about 30 seconds to a minute in the show. A plot point in this is that some evil guy he's dumping toxic waste into a river in Africa, and it reaches the ocean. It's enough of this stuff. It's bad enough toxin, and it's enough of it that it could potentially kill the base of the food chain in the Atlantic Ocean, and therefore, global catastrophe that ultimately starve the planet, kind of thing. So, of course, our hero has to come to save the day. But that's that kind of thing. That I guess that would I'm gonna go with that one. What if you had a favorite to pick on the list? What would you go with?
Well, I think environmental disaster is a very good one, and closely related is experimental technology accident, right?
Yeah. Where
we're just messing with stuff and we have no idea what horrible chain reaction we're going to set up. Kind of like your thing about the geomagnetic reversal, right? Where it just it knocks over a domino we didn't expect to go over, and then everything else falls down, right? And suddenly you're in this world where just everything falls apart. All of these have that potential. That's the thing, right? Each one of them. Well, I mean, extraterrestrial invasion is just bad on its own, clearly, right? I mean, it's just if a star blows up and we get hit by cosmic radiation. But some of the rest of them, if you look at it, you go global pandemic. It's like, well, we might think we've tamped it down, and then it just kills the global economy, right? And there's chaos, right? All of them can potentially lead to destruction. It's like when there's aftershocks from an earthquake, right? It's like they can kill you one way or they can kill you another way. And it reminds me a lot, when you start looking at it that way, of a thing we've talked about many times over the years, is the 7 types of cell damage that cause aging, per Aubrey de Grey in his book on aging, and his book on ending aging. When you talk about the fact that they all kind of play off each other, and you have to get rid of all of them if you really want to be safe, right? It's like
it's 7 bullets flying at you. The 7 things that cause you to age, and de Grey's basically said that it's like 7 bullets flying at you. You can deflect 6. That last bullet will get you.
Right, exactly. So
you have to solve all 7. Yeah.
Here we are. We figure out how to make sure that AI is not going to get us, and nanotech's not going to get us, and we've figured out that we're not going to destroy ourselves with climate change, and we've got it all nailed down, right? And then the aliens show up and wipe us out, right? Or then a star blows up in another solar system and wipes us out. It's like you got to look at the whole package, which is why we were talking about maybe it's better to look at human disease as one thing. When we were talking about curing disease, Mark Zuckerberg and Priscilla Chan and their foundation working on trying to eliminate all disease, they're looking at it as a single thing. How do you get to the root cause of all disease? And you start finding things like metformin, which isn't that. It's not the cure for all disease, but it seems to affect a lot of them at the same time. And you think, well, maybe we need something like that. We need something like that that's going to wipe out all disease. Maybe we need something like that for global catastrophic risk, right? Now, what would that be? I don't know, right? Because we're talking about a massive technology. But for any of these, we're probably going to have to do something really big and something way outside of our current perception of what we're capable of doing to protect ourselves from them, right? I mean, what do you do about asteroid impact, right? I mean,
well, here's what you do, and this is what Elon Musk keeps bringing up. We need a sizable population of humanity elsewhere. We need a Martian colony or a lunar colony or something. We need to have enough people off-world that if something catastrophic happened, we could reseed the planet from elsewhere. And, I mean, that protects against most of this stuff.
I will list that as a good hedge strategy, right? It's like better not to get wiped out and have a backup,
yeah,
then it's better to have a backup than not to have a backup. That's for sure. If you're going to get wiped out either way, much better to have a backup, but better to not get wiped out, right? I guess that's my that's my answer to Elon Musk. Much as I appreciate the fact that if there's not much we can do currently about, say, extraterrestrial invasion, although if we're on Mars, how much good is that going to do us, right? If they find us
not
on Earth,
any good. If they find us on Earth, they'll find us on Mars too. So
it's a tough nut. I'm telling you, this whole surviving a hostile universe is going to be a tough nut. That's why we're going to have to take some audacious steps. We're going to have to take on capabilities that we haven't thought about before. Now, I will say that Elon Musk and his "Let's go to Mars," that is an audacious action right there. Absolutely.
Right.
And whoever gets on a rocket and goes to Mars to live and to start humanity's presence on Mars, those people are engaging in as audacious an action as any human beings have ever engaged in, I would say. Right?
Oh,
I mean, that is up there. So not to discredit that at all, but just to say that that's step one, right? It's step point one of an unbelievably large series of audacious steps we're going to have to take if we're going to survive, right? I mean, that's the truth. We have to be outrageously optimistic and find a way to survive, and then we have to act big, right? Big to make it happen. We have to get to the point where Elon Musk's idea about setting up a colony on Mars seems like small potatoes, where it seems like yesterday's news. That's how big we have to start thinking. And I don't know that we're anywhere near that yet. So it's good that we've got people like Elon Musk at least starting to push us in that direction.
Yeah, it's the first step, isn't it?
Yeah.
I mean, we get to Mars, and perhaps we even have colonies in the atmosphere of Venus.
Right.
Our friend Tobias Buckow talked about that possibility
years ago.
Many shows.
And has recently been getting traction from NASA. I don't know if you saw that, but NASA had a thing on that.
Yeah,
a couple
that's
years
right.
ago.
It turns out that outside of the planet Earth, the place that's probably most hospitable to humanity is in the upper atmosphere of Venus, because you could find a place in the upper atmosphere where the pressure is right, the temperature is roughly right. Of course, you need to have oxygen to breathe because the atmosphere is wrong for us to breathe. But turns out that to float at the proper altitude on Venus, oxygen is itself a lifting gas.
In fact, our atmosphere, our mix of oxygen and nitrogen is a lifting gas on Venus.
At the right place in the atmosphere on Venus. So,
we put you in the right place, have the right pressure, have the right temperature. It's almost too perfect, actually. It almost feels like a setup. That's how nice it would be. In fact, maybe better than Mars. Maybe Elon ought to be rethinking this. Maybe step one should be setting up some colonies in Venus. Although there's definitely technological challenges there, too, right? Just in terms of...
if you fail to float and you were to somehow descend to the planet's surface, then you're gone.
You are so dead.
Yeah.
On the upside, the gravity is closer, right? So
that's true. People, Mars has some interesting things. Their day is very close to ours. The Martian day is like 25 hours. It's incredibly close.
Oh, that's very close. Huh?
Yeah.
What's the Venus day? I don't even know. I have no idea.
I don't even know.
Brought it up. But there you go. Yeah. A lot of little things we got to work out. But that's going to be more our topic next time out, because we're going to talk about the small incremental improvements that have to be made along the way, in addition to the big audacious changes that have to happen. But there it is. I just put it out there. I think if we're ever going to survive, and we've done it so far, we've made it a long way, let's face it, as a species, and it's pretty impressive, probably through an awful lot of audacious action. And the point is, for the long term, if we're going to live for millions of years, it's going to take much more audacious steps than we've taken up to this point.
Phil, just to correct myself, it's not 25 hours. Martian day, or often called a sol, is 24 hours, 39 minutes.
Oh, there you go. It's almost perfect. Talk about almost too perfect. Now, did you find the Venus day while you were out there looking around while I'm making my speech?
No, let me find out.
It wasn't that long of a speech. So let me just go back. I'll start speechifying again, and then you do a little more Googling. All that's to say, Stephen, that we got to think big. We got to get out there and take some audacious action. Okay, what do you got? Venus day.
Okay. They don't call it a sol on Venus, so I'm all messed up now. We'll figure it out.
Let's see. Hey, Siri, how long is a day on Venus? Oh,
The rotation period of Venus is about 243 days.
She gave us the year. That's no help.
243 days is that's the
She gave us the year. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, but I think that might be true. Maybe Venus is tidally lost.
Yeah. It takes about 243 Earth days to spin around just once, according to what I'm seeing here.
So we would have to create the day on the balloon. Yeah. We would have to create it by letting the sun shine, pulling up the shades, right?
Yeah, that's right. It's the Venusian blinds, right?
Venusian blinds, absolutely.
Yeah,
that'll be the new name. That'll be the new name for them.
That's right.
Now that will be an incremental improvement over Venetian blinds. So I think we're really kind of slopping over into the next show. So I'm gonna call it quits right there. I've made the speech twice. It's going to take some big, audacious action to get us to the future, but not terribly big, audacious action to get us to the next show. And we're going to continue talking about the role of outrageous optimism. Stephen, great talking with you. Great having you all with us. And until next time, live to see it. Hey, everybody. Thanks for watching. Please click the subscribe button below and you'll get an update every time we have a new video out. Also, check out some of our archive videos. We've done more than 800 shows, so you got a lot of catching up to do.